I keep getting a lot of requests on here from people asking about me to make more and more predictions all the time for the future, because obviously people must have liked some of the stuff I did for the predictions for 2017 and the predictions for Donald Trump and all that type of thing. But I want to sort of look at the sort of a little bit more at some of the long-term things that are happening for us at the moment. And not really to make specific predictions this time, but to come to a little bit of the theme about what's happening and where we're going. Because, you know, right at this moment, we are in a period, now I'm talking now in summer of 2017, but right at this moment, it feels like the world is a time of great division. You know, we're seeing Donald Trump, for example, talking about building walls with Mexico. We're seeing big divisions here in the UK between us and Europe, and a breakup of Europe, and divisions between countries within Europe. And it seems like there seems to be everybody's looking towards themselves all the time at the moment. A lot of selfishness happening in the world. A lot of dangerous period too. We're seeing the Middle East, almost like Syria, like a load of rubble. You know, I mean, Jane had some people come for readings recently, and she was telling me what they were telling about their escape from Syria. Horrific times for some of those people. And when you actually talk face to face with someone, you see it on the news, you know, but when you talk face to face to someone, you find out what the real horror is. You know, it's those little personal experiences they tell you about, things that wouldn't be transmitted on TV, horrible things that go on in these countries, and not just Syria, but look at North and South Korea too. You know, what's going on there? You know, look at what must it be like to live in that sort of 1984 style George Orwellian Big Brother society, where you just have to clap the beloved leader, you know, all the time. You know, it must be awful to live like that with so little freedom. And, you know, we're coming up to the time here in the UK at the moment where they're starting to sort of kind of celebrate or talk about the Second World War anniversaries that are all coming up in 2017. And the next one coming up is, of course, the Dunkirk, you know, where so many people died on the beaches and so forth. You know, we saw the movie recently. Heartbreaking to think about what people went through, you know, and also what, you know, I knew people that died on Dunkirk, and well, not died on, escaped Dunkirk and fought all the way to Berlin in the end. And Jane's mum's brother was there too, and so many people, you know, that were connected with all these terrible events in history, you know, and it's going on right now. You'd think by the time we'd been through a First World War and a Second World War, we'd have sorted it all out by now, wouldn't you? But here we are at a point where it feels like we're almost on the edge of a third, you know. So what on earth is happening? You know, what in terms of the divine world is happening here on earth, you know? I mean, the Second World War in particular, and I wrote about this a lot in Messages from the Universe, was very much a kind of a satanic uprising in some ways. Not that I believe in that type of Christian idea, but there was an evilness that had come through Hitler and his mob, you know? He was very much into the occult, deeply into the occult. All of them were. All of the people in the higher command were actually actively involved in black magic, you know. So there is so often in this world a hidden agenda that we're not aware of, you know. A group of people that drive forward our society that we're unaware of, that we don't know about. You know, we have, like, for example, at this present time, we have a sort of a hidden elite. You know, I mean, I'm not talking about the Illuminati sort of ideas now. I don't want to get pulled down that path. But it's pretty obvious that a few people hold the strings of power in this world, you know, and that we have, when it comes down to it, very few freedoms, really. You know, we have a few. There's a few there. We have a democracy, we think. We have a political system, we think, that can actually get sometimes the tyrants out of power. On a political level, on an earthly level, the fight still goes on. You know, the battle's not been won by the negative people, but it still goes on, you know. And, you know, I fear for the world sometimes when it comes to things like the way the internet's taken over. You know, the internet pulls us into such a deep materialism. You know, in my predictions in 2017, I talked a lot about the coming of a sort of augmented reality I saw when I was sat down for my meditation. I didn't know what I was thinking about there, but I felt that there was going to be a huge increase in kind of this 3D reality where, you know, like they play the games with the face mask things on. But I felt that was going to become so easily accessible, just even on an ordinary phone, that people are going to get sucked into that. And it kind of, now I look at the news and they're talking about this. They're talking about releasing these things, and that deeply worries me because it sucks you more and more into this controllable cyber world. You know, it's a dangerous world, that cyber world, because it's in the hands of a few businesses. You know, you're watching this at the moment, probably either on YouTube, which is where I initially put it, or on Facebook and possibly Vimeo, but it's likely you're seeing it through YouTube, which is owned by Google. And Google pretty much own the internet now. They act like they are. They become the monopoly, and they can... they're not censoring everything. You know, this video will stay up, I'm sure. It won't be taken down. But Google, as you're watching this, they know what you've looked for before you've come to this. They know what keywords you've put in. They know what you're interested in. They know that you might be a person that's interested in spiritual things, or you might have put some, whatever you've typed in to get to this YouTube. They know who you are. You know, they have enormous information about you. Every time you do a search, they know exactly what you're about. And for me, I mean, I really do believe that there is a dangerous position with Google. I mean, from my point of view, I used to run I still do, I've got my website, psychics.co.uk, but we used to have an enormous community on there. Over 1 million subscribers at one point. That's one lot of people. And 150,000 visitors a day on my site. And going up, 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 up. And then Google decided to tweak the algorithm a bit. And they brought Google Plus out. They decided, well, this is what I think, allegedly. They thought, Google Plus, if we're going to have Google Plus, we want everybody to come to Google Plus, our little community. So let's destroy all those forums. Let's destroy the forums by saying that any thin content is bad for the user. So let's mask it in this idea that's what's good for the user. You're right. So what's good for the user is we don't have forums. They only got one page answers, one line answers and things. So we get rid of all that. So forums like mine and all the spiritual forums that are out there, because all the ones I used to go to are closing down or closed, and they're struggling because Google has taken all the traffic from them and tried to push it at that time because they wanted to compete with Facebook, tried to push it into Google Plus, which in itself is now failing because people don't like it much. So, you know, they have an enormous control. Look at the control that goes on Wikipedia. Go and look up any well-known psychic you know, and look it up on Wikipedia, and it's been compromised by psychop, you know, the ones that are the skeptics that hate psychics. Then you've got all these allegedlys, and all that they push forward is the fact that these things aren't true, you know. But go and have a look at James Randi's site, because this psychic's a load of nonsense. You look how every single one's been compromised. And holy men, a lot of good holy men are now being clobbered by the Indian skeptics that have gone onto Wikipedia. So Wikipedia, which Google pulls up as the great resource, is compromised. Google is compromised. Facebook is just a data gathering organisation to get more and more information about us. And then Amazon pretty much controls the shopping on the site. So all small businesses have to go through Amazon. Now, don't you think that is a dangerous situation that we are in? I mean, that is where World War III is happening. It's happening in cyberspace. You know, we see it also with the hacks and things go on. We see the power of what can happen if you grab hold of people's computer screens and take all their information, you know. We are in a sort of cyber war, and we, the ordinary individual, are mugs because we just go along with it. We use Google all the time, because I use Google all the time, because, you know, it's easier. It gives a better result than Bing, even though my conscience says always use Bing, you know. And same with putting these on YouTube, but my conscience says I ought to put them on Vimeo, you know, because use the alternatives. But then you won't get to people. So we're stuck. And although at the moment, you know, these monopolies have kind of are taking over, my fear is what will happen in the long term, you know, because we have cyberspace compromised. We have the real world compromised. You know, small businesses can't get started nowadays when you're up against, you know, how can you open a little coffee shop nowadays if Costa Coffee or Starbucks or any of the big brands open next to you? People go, oh, I know Starbucks, I've had one of those before, I'll go in there. And you ignore the little Italian coffee place that's trying to do its very best and give you the very best and pay their taxes where the other ones don't, you know? So we're being compromised by huge, big businesses, by big cyber organisations, and those are owned by shareholders, right? And a lot of those shareholders are a few people, right? So this is where we get this idea of this ruling elite, you know? A few people own the lot, you know? They own all these. And we, as mugs, have to go along with it. Look at what's happening with all this, the way that the world's got all these problems with immigration and things like that, you know? It's not natural to pull all the people in together. It don't work. Cultural mixing often ends up in conflict if it's too big a scale too quick, you know? And so, but it suits the big businesses. It suits the big businesses to pull in cheap labour. I mean, what's happening in Europe is basically what happened in Nazi Germany. You've got Germany running with slave labour. Slave labour being all the people from Poland and all the people bringing in from Turkey and all the ones they're bringing in. Same in the UK. All these people being brought in as cheap labour. We don't think about those poor people are struggling. You know, they're working on wages they shouldn't be working on, you know? We have been compromised beyond belief. You know, we are in, I think, that is the key to the dangers of the world at the moment. You know, or in the past, all the democracies were formed on slavery. You know, the Greek democracy was formed on slavery. Rome was formed on slavery. India, you know, you think, oh, that won't be slavery. It was. It was formed on a class system that was basically slavery. The Arab world was based on slavery. America was built on slaves, you know. We're building Europe and we're building America on slaves, you know, Mexican slaves or whatever, you know. If we have cheap labour, those people are suffering, you know. Isn't that person equal to the billionaire that's employing all these people? So it's a broken system, in my opinion. So what is happening in this world at the moment? What does this mean for the future of the world? It is all division and greed, isn't it? It's division, division, division. It's ego, really, you know. It's the ego of those that are in power, you know. Because people in power, they don't want money. Once you get over £100,000 coming in a year or something like that, they say, you more or less saturated your happiness. You can do just about what you need to do, you know, and without having to sort of, you know, have vast amounts. You know, you've got right clothes, right food, holidays, so on. But people want more and more and more. I want a palace. I want a stately home. I want 2 stately homes. I want a place in France. I want a place in Italy. I want a place in America. I want another one in America. Let's have one in New York and one in Florida. You know, greed. But the greed is not the greed for things. It's the greed for power and control. You know, that's what people love. That's what these people at the top that we go on about as the hidden elite want, you know. And whatever way you look at it, I mean, I'm not into this idea of, you know, hidden societies going over centuries and all that business, but there definitely is a ruling elite behind it all. Egotistical, greedy people, because what happens what always happens is you get a fair distribution of wealth and eventually someone takes the lot. Google takes a lot off the internet, you know. Starbucks takes the lot with the coffee business, you know, and no matter what governments try to do, you can't seem to break these monopolies up. They're forming faster than we could ever break them up because the law's so slow behind it. So we have this dreadful egotism in the world. Now, I understand that we are, you know, from what I've read in India and with the people I've spoken to and the other prophets that I've listened to, we are in a stage at the moment of kind of the darkness before the dawn. You know, we're in what's called a sort of a yajna. It's like a period of change. And it's a yajna for purification, right? We're in a point where it seems bad, but spiritually speaking, I believe we're in a period where where purification is about to happen. Purification often when it comes to societies and things, can result in bad external conditions, such as wars and things like this. I believe we are in a very difficult position at the moment. The purification, I think, will come from the environment itself. You know, when we start to see the real effects of environmental change, we will see major effects that will force societies to change their ways and force us out of this materialism and force us into thinking more collectively. So, but as all this is happening, we all the spiritual people out there, you know, and I think most of you that are watching this have probably got some spiritual intent of some sort. Most of us spiritual people, as it were, feel kind of helpless against it all. You know, what can we do? You know, do we go out and start throwing petrol bombs? No. What we've got to do is the way to counter the bad in the world is, like the I Ching says it, the way to overcome evil is strong perseverance in the good. Right? Because the more you fight it, the worse it gets in some respects, you know. And although obviously people want to make political changes and all those type of things, that's all good too, you know. But the key of it must be ultimately the changes within ourselves. I've mentioned this a lot in some of my earlier videos. I've said that the only way we're going to really make any real difference in this world is to actually start being genuinely more spiritual people. That means we've got to seek our spiritual self. We've got to realise that that material world out there actually is Maya. It's illusion, you know. It's all the part of the illusion of Maya. And if we can come to a form of realisation where we begin to see the reality, and more people start to wake up, like lights waking up, you know, like, pow, there's another one just woken up, there's another one just woken up, there's another one, you know. We are all waking up, all of us in our own way. We're not all Buddhas, we're not all, you know, super beings, but we are waking up in our own way to the understanding that the spirit is stronger than the material. And that's what this yajna is about. This is what this period of purification is about. We must purify ourselves to become awakened spiritual beings. Because the powers out there of ego that I've talked about are powers of division, right? Ego divides. Love unites. And that's what we're doing with our spiritual quest. We are coming to the idea that love unites. Ego divides, love unites. That's it. Simple. More powerful than anything that can be done in the material world. The era of what they're calling the Satya Yuga, the Yuga of truth, is on its way. And it seems dark at the moment, but I believe, my intuitive feeling feels, that the light is about to dawn, is starting to happen. And where does that light dawn? What is the perfect world? The perfect world is not where everything is materially great, because you give everything that people want to them and they become lazy, they become selfish, they become greedy. It's not about material things. It's about people becoming happy within themselves, having what we call the bliss, you know, happiness that comes without cause. Happiness that comes that's not based upon the idea that, oh, I've got a new car, I feel happy. That's a temporary happiness that goes once the car gets scratched or gets rusty. No, a happiness that just arises of itself. And that can only come in people when they are at one with the divine within themselves, that spiritual centre that is within them. So that is what the love is. That's the love that unites us with the divine happiness that is unshakable, right? Ego divides, love unites. I could go on forever about this. I hope that inspires you. Jane and I now do our spiritual work for our foundation. All the profits that come from things like our conferences and theatres and workshops and all those exciting things now go into this foundation, which ultimately has the long-term plan of building centres in the UK and maybe around the world one day. But meanwhile, we've been doing a lot of direct spiritual work with it. We've been going out, feeding people in India, giving to the destitute, giving to beggars. We've helped feed schools, helped orphanages, and we've even given cows to older people that have no other form of income. So mediumship can change your life, but it can also help people directly in the world. So go to the links at the end and find out all about what Jane and I are trying to do. And you can do a lot just by sharing these videos on social media. Help us get the word out. Help us to do something really good in this world. Click on this picture of me to subscribe to our channel and see all of our latest videos as soon as they're published. Or click on this next video for more of our stuff.